but screw it, I'ma do it anyway. I don't know how this will turn out, but screw it, I'ma do it anyway. I don't know how this thing works, but screw it, I'ma do it anyway. I don't know how this will turn out, but screw it, I'ma do it anyway.
What is up, good people? It's your girl, Nikki P. Welcome back to another episode of Soul Untamed, where we are talking about creating a life that is designed by you and not for you. Now, we are officially in the month of August, and I'm particularly excited about this month because I am actually going to start rolling out some of my products. So stay tuned for that. I'll be rolling them out a little bit later this month. But the overall theme of August is limiting beliefs. Because as you know, if you've been to my channel before, you know that we talk about creating a life that we love. A lot of us have been living a stranger's life because we were taught that way. We think that we should be living a certain way, society, social media, all the things. And then sometimes we have moments in our, we wonder why we're not happy. And the reason why is because you're not living a life that is authentic to you. Now, this month in particular, I'm going to be focused on the topic of limiting beliefs because it all starts in the mind. Now, I talked a little bit about limiting beliefs when I mentioned one of the reasons why people don't live a life that they love living, why they don't choose themselves. And that is because there is something deeply rooted in your subconscious that tells you either you can't have it, you don't deserve it, why you asking for so much, why can't you be content? You know, some of the worst thoughts are, I'm not good enough, I'm not really worthy of this, I'm too old to start over. I have a whole family. I have too many people that depend on me. I can't think about just me. And if I prioritize myself, I'm being selfish, like all of these different things. These are all examples of limiting beliefs. They are subconscious thoughts that basically keep us from moving forward with any of the deep-rooted desires that we have. Because if you don't believe that it can be your reality, you will talk yourself out of anything that could possibly open up space for you to enjoy this goal that you have, this life that you desire. So an example of that, let's say business, right? If you believe that, if you have a limiting belief, like say you want to be a coach, right? And your limiting belief is that, well, why would anybody listen to me? Why, oh, this market is so oversaturated, like there's no point in me, putting myself out there because there are too many coaches and this and there's too much this and that. And you will literally talk yourself out of the whole possibility of something that could have opened doors for you, because you won't even start step one, because you have already, your belief is that there's not room for me here. So you're not even going to try. If you have fitness goals and you've been struggling, say you've been struggling with your fitness your whole life, you've been struggling with your weight your whole life, and you've never been smaller than X, and unfortunately, we do still have body shaming and things like this. And so if you are imagining that your shape should be a certain way, and then you are constantly being flooded with other people who have this shape that you want, but it's good for them and not for me. If the limiting belief is that I can't lose weight, my body just won't, for whatever reason, whether you think it's your genetics, whether you think it's, oh, I'm too old, oh, I'm just at that age, this is this kind of weight and it's just not going to go anywhere, then you're not going to go a step further and start working through the action steps that could possibly lead you to having a more fulfilled and healthy lifestyle, because you already have talked yourself out of trying. And if you are, I could go on and on talking about all the different ways that limiting beliefs show up in our lives. Like, let's talk about dating. People don't want to talk about dating. Oh, dating is hard. Oh, it's rough out here. Oh, it's this. Men are trash. Women are trash. Everybody's trash. And so if you have that mindset, you're never going to put yourself out there. There could be a person, your person could be right in front of your face, but you will have complete tunnel vision because you already think that, oh, there's no good men out here. There are no good women out here. So you have literally closed your mind. You've closed your mind. You've closed your eyes. You have limited your vision to being able to see all of the possibilities. That's what limiting beliefs do. They literally keep you stuck in one place. They literally keep you stuck. And I will tell you that throughout my life, I have dealt with, different limiting beliefs as far as like a lot of mine had to do with what my value was in the workspace, because I had a lot of negative experiences in the beginning of my career that led me to really think that I just couldn't do the work well. And it really took a lot, a lot of reflection and reprogramming myself to know, no, you're smart enough to do this. No, you have value here. And just because this person didn't see the value, it doesn't mean that you yourself do not provide value in this space. All of us have it. All of us go through some level of limiting belief. So all of that to just give you, if you did not know what limiting beliefs are, and I'm sure that most of my audience has heard of it, it's a term that we now know. We have language for it now. But let's talk a little bit more about before we go to how to deal with the limiting beliefs that you have, let's talk about where those beliefs come from. I was listening to a live yesterday, and I was listening to a woman talk about, she was talking about her toddler, and she was saying how in her life, she needed to tap into the same kind of energy and belief system that her toddler has. Because, when we're kids, before the world gets to us, we believe we can do anything. Literally, no matter how delusional it may sound, we really believe we can do anything. We believe we can fly. We're looking at cartoons and different like kids shows where we're looking at people do all these imaginary things that in the moment seem very real to us. We think we can do anything. When I was a kid, I changed like job. I was not working, of course, but what I wanted to be when I grew up changed so frequently. I remember wanting to be a chemist because I had this fascination for a little while of just being able to like mix things together. I remember wanting to be a nurse because my mother was a nurse, and so it was what I saw. And then I kept changing. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do that. And it never occurred to me in my, childlike mind that I couldn't have it. And it was only when I started listening to different people say different things that I started to believe differently about my ability to do things. So where do limiting beliefs come from? They come from your environment. They come from sometimes your guardians. For a lot of us, and particularly for the people who grew up in my generation, our parents were boomers and were raised to believe that your life had to have a certain traditional path, and that you go to school, you get a degree, you go and work, and you just have to work. You have to work for somebody. The whole thought and idea of entrepreneurship personally was not part of my growing up. Nobody in my family worked for themselves. Everybody that I saw all worked for other people. This is just what you do. I was shown and subliminally taught that your happiness does not matter in your workspace. I was also told, because I was always a person who had a hard time staying in one place. Like I would get bored so easily and I wanted to change jobs so frequently. I was always told, oh no, well, you don't want to do that. You don't want your resume to look like this and it looks like you're not stable and this, that, and the other. And so I really started to believe that if I chose a job, that I was just stuck there. That was my limiting belief. Whatever choice I made, I had to stick to it. If I chose this school to go to, I couldn't go to another school. I was stuck there. And that's what held me back for, for quite a good amount of time, until I started seeing it in other people. So our limiting beliefs are really shaped by whatever it is that we are seeing all the time. Whatever you saw growing up, you have different beliefs about what you can accomplish and what you can accomplish based on what you saw growing up. And even in our adult lives, when we see things on social media, when we see things on media, period, when we're watching movies, when we're watching TV, but my very first job, I was fired from that job. That I was fired because I had a hard time keeping up with the work. I was in school at the same time. I wasn't dealing with people who were very patient. It was just one of those really hard places, and I was let go. I remember though very vividly that my boss, when he was letting me go, that because I used to talk about everything I did when I was at that job. I was very vocal about my musical, aspirations and everything. And so one of the last things he said to me was, I don't really think that you really wanted to be here anyway. And so what I took away from that was that part of the reason why I was fired was because I shared my dream of being a musician and being a songwriter, and it worked against me. So now, every time I engage with a new client, even though I know that had nothing to do with why I was let go, but the feeling of it is still here. And so I still am very, very, very unlikely to share that I do music, because it's personal for me. And it's very hard. Like, once we stop working together, everybody that I've stayed in touch with and I stopped working with, they all know that I do music. But the people that if we're still working together, I don't want you to know that about me. So it's something, I feel like it's a little silly, but it's an example of a traumatic, reason for why I don't share what I'm doing musically with people that I'm working with professionally, and so that's just another way that limiting beliefs can come up. They can come from either your environment, they can come from traumatic experiences, because when you remember what something made you feel like, that stays with you. Like, if you might have limiting beliefs around finances because you may have taken a risk in investing in something, and then that particular investment did not go well. And so now in your head, you now have a belief about taking those type of risks. And so it prevents you from jumping into something like that again. Now, while I am all for learning the lessons and taking what you need to take from it and applying that knowledge and doing better the next time, there is nothing wrong with that. But what makes it a problem is when you just stop trying because of a limiting belief. And bringing it back around to how that affects us with choosing a life that we really want to live. If you really don't believe that you can have this life, for whatever reason, you're not going to try to pursue it. You're not going to try to pursue it. And that to me is the biggest tragedy of all. When I think of any kind of real fears that I have, the biggest fear for me is living the rest of my life no different than I live it today. Never having grown, never having changed. Still this person, this version of me right now, 40 some, 50 years later. That is the scariest thing to me. And that should really be the scariest thing for anybody. So this is why it's so important to understand what limiting beliefs really are, where they come from, because you have to start with awareness. You know, like, just because the limiting belief is there, it does not mean that there are no ways to reframe it, that you are just stuck with this belief and this is just what you believe and that's it. But in order for you to start to change it, so that you can start believing that you can have the life and that you're worthy of the life and enough for the life that you actually really want to be living, it has to start with awareness of where you are now. So my call to action for you today is to do some journaling. Now, if you don't like to write, because I don't actually really like to write in spite of me being a songwriter, I do video diaries. But I want you to take some time during this next week and journal and reflect on what limiting beliefs that you have. And you might have many. So maybe choose where you feel like you're stuck. Start with that feeling. If there is an area of your life that you particularly feel stuck in, finances, dating, your business, your relationships in general, not just romantic. Like, if anywhere that you feel stuck, that's a good place to start. And sit with that particular category and think like, well, why is it so hard for me to do this thing? What story am I telling myself? Because that really is what a limiting belief is. That is when it's a problem, because it is a story that you tell yourself over and over again. So even the times where you might be brave enough to start doing something different that will put you on a path that you need to be on, the story keeps replaying, and then you recoil and you go right back to where you were. So start with that area that you feel the most stuck in. And really sit there and try to identify 1, 2, maybe 3 limiting beliefs that keep you stuck there. And then once you identify those, try to trace back where they come from. Was it a moment that somebody said something and that thing stuck with you? Was it because is it from a traumatic experience? Is it something that you did that didn't work out, and so now you have this fear of failure with it, so you don't want to try it again? Trace back where it comes from, because you can't fight the problem unless you know what it is. So start there. And thank you so much for joining me today. If you are still here, you are a rock star. Thank you for listening to me in this whole video. I just really want us to be on the path of doing better, living better, happy to wake up in the morning and not just getting up like, oh, it's another day. That is my goal for you. So yes, that is your call to action item this week. That's your challenge for this week. And please join me for next week. I will be talking about reframing those limiting beliefs. So again, much appreciated. It's your girl, Nikki P. I'll see you on the next one. What's up, good people? Thanks for watching this video. If something resonated with you,
Please give it a like, share with a friend. Also, leave me comments just to say hi. Tell me how you're feeling. And if there are any other topics that you want me to cover, please feel free to let me know. And if you like this and you want to hear more, please hit that subscribe button. And I will see you in the next one.